So as part of the installation and configuration, we're going to go over planning and prerequisites that are needed before you install the machine. There's typically a site survey that is done by the sales team. They discuss the requirements with the customer. They look at the area the machine's going to be installed in, make sure they understand the power requirements and the physical site, the load on the floor that the system has. Yes? The weight, we'll have that upcoming. We have all the details on a slide coming up as far as the weight and physical attributes of the system. Now, we'll go through the power and cooling and customer information that you'll need prior to the installation. You're going to need some IP addresses, system names, and things like that. Now, typically what's going to happen is we'll get notified of an install, and there'll be a call. There'll be a call with the customer and the sales team that you'll be involved in as the technical person. And this is the chance that you get to ask all your questions, such as, you know, have you planned for this? Do you have these IP addresses? Those sort of technical things that you'll need to get from the customer. Then there's actually the physical installation, the shipping and delivering of the unit, the uncrating and positioning, verifying cabling or cabling the system, as well as the power-up. And once all the physical requirements are met and the system's in place, there's going to be some logical installation where you set the configuration parameters and verify the system and do some testing before you turn it over to the customer. So planning and prerequisites. The physical space that's required for the machine. The rack dimensions are listed here, pretty much 200 centimeters high, 110 centimeters deep, 60 centimeters wide. Now, there's some clearances needed for cooling and service. You want to leave space in the rear of the machine. This is the rear here with the two open doors of at least 100 centimeters to allow service in the back. The front door, you're going to need at least 120 centimeters clearance. And on the sides, it says no closer than 45 centimeters to a wall, but can have adjacent racks. Basically, that's meaning you can have a rack here, but you really need space out front towards the side so you can stand to the side here and when you're pulling out a module. So you don't want it right up against a wall because that limits your ability to service the machine. But it's okay to put it in between two racks. But there's some consideration there as well. I mean, it's not ideal, but it's workable if you sandwich it in between two racks. You just have to have thin arms, forearms, to get your arms in to service it. This box, as you'll see in a moment, is pretty narrow, and there's a lot of weight in that narrow space. So you need to make sure that the floor reinforcement should be able to support a weight of 869 kilograms or 1,912 pounds on an area of 60 centimeters wide by 109 centimeters deep. So it's very narrow and kind of deep, but there's a lot of weight on that small area.
Have you guys ever had a VSAK roll into a tile cable cutout? Sure. Okay. If that happens here, it's falling over.
Yeah. Yeah, so basically you need to be real careful. It's kind of top heavy when you fill the whole 42U rack with disk drives. It becomes very top heavy. So any time, like Ian says, if it goes into a hole, it's going all the way over. And there's no getting it out of that. Order another. Well, I would just run. You know, don't try to catch it. Yeah, we all seen the video of the shark falling off the truck, right?
Yeah, run and start working on your alibi.
Yeah, run and work. Yeah, there's a video of a shark falling off a truck at AT&T, I think, and the guy tries to stop it. I mean, and you just pretty close. Yeah, it was a close call. So you just get away from the box, run as fast as you can, and work on your alibi. We're not. We'll cover that. Oh, there you go. Oh, is that completely over, huh?
There was a picture in the Truck Gun newsletter stuff now. Remember that? Yeah.
So that's
A mover that brought in on a dollar, right? And turned the corner and snapped the stance, four stance, and turned the corner. And the floor just
right. So it all buckled and just
spring on the floor.
yeah.
1,000-pound welding weight load. So broke that fourth blade.
So it's extremely important that you check the floor reinforcement before you roll this box in onto the floor, because it's a lot of weight in a small area. In fact, when it's on the floor, it only takes up 2 tiles, you know, 2 regular tiles. That's a lot of weight on 2 tiles, you know. So be careful. Now here is a web link to the APC. APC actually makes the rack, so if you want more details on the rack itself, there's a link you can go to. So here's a picture of the machine that right next to a DS8000, and you can see it's a little bit taller, a lot narrower, and just about as deep, with a lot more disk drives. So the power when the system has an ATS, the power requirements is 220 volt 60 amp circuits, and you have the peak, and also be aware that there's feature codes for the different connectors and the different geos, and make sure you have the right connector and the customer is aware of the requirements as well. What is it?
Cable, Russell Stoll connector.
Oh, yeah, I believe that that's going to be part of the installation guide. It should be. Yeah. If it's not, we'll make sure that that gets in there, so they'll know the connector number. Right. Without an ATS, you need 3 30 amp circuits. No. Well, theoretically, yes, but you don't want to. You know, make sure it has all 3. Okay. Yes. Yeah, the Release 1 ATS was different. It required only 2 30 amp circuits. The R2 ATS requires 60 amp circuits, and they also redesigned it and provided direct outputs to run things such as the maintenance module.
Also, it moved it over so makes it so it's not out in the middle of the way of everything, right?
Yeah.
Pain where it wasn't just R1.
What's a pain where it is now too?
Yeah, in R2 it's still all the way to the right. Yeah, the ATS is installed on the right side of the system, on the rear. So the raised floor, you want to make sure there's adequate cooling with 2 ventilation tiles in front of the rack, so the airflow goes from the front and blows out the back. Again, the weight, this is the raw rack, not the shipping container. I think the weight on the previous slide was with the shipping container, the crate that it comes in. So here's the raw weight of the system, about 1,760 pounds or 800 kilograms. The cooling requirements, it displaces approximately 26,000 BTUs per hour, and the extreme operating temperature range is from 5 to 35 degrees Celsius, 60 to 90 degrees Fahrenheit, and 20 to 80% humidity. That's the extremes. The recommended operating range is 20 to 25 Celsius, 68 to 77 Fahrenheit, with 40 to 50% humidity. This is some of the customer information that you'll be required to collect on your technical call prior to the installation. There's, as we've seen, 3 IP addresses for each of the interface modules that connect to the customer network. You'll need to get the IP addresses, the net mask, and their default gateway, as well as environment information such as the DNS servers, primary, secondary, an SMTP gateway to allow messages to go out from the customer's network, NTP's time server, if they have one on their network, that's nice to have, which will allow the system to sync up with their hosts. You might want to know that internally to the system, I mean, this is an external NTP server to get the time to sync with the customer's time. But internally, the systems all share an NTP server between themselves, so they're all synchronized internally. So you don't have to worry about logs from one module having a different timestamp from logs from another module. The modules even act as an NTP server to other components such as the UPS. So the UPS timestamp is also matches the module's timestamps. And you want to collect a SNMP server if the customer is interested in monitoring the system through SNMP traps. Their time zone, an email sender address. Again, this is for event notification as to what email address that event is coming from. And then for remote access, we have not only a modem, but we have the ability to create a direct network connection through SSH tunneling. So you can collect information for those interfaces as well.
So you do support VPNs?
No.
Yeah, this is an old checklist from R1, so ignore the
R1 doesn't support VPN, right?
Well, it does, but not from an IBM
So here's
perspective.
the problem, right? Or here's the deal. It even silk screened on the patch panel, right?
Yeah, VPN, yeah.
There's no VPN. So I guess whoever did that thinks it's the same as
Right.
the patch panel.
We had long discussions with people about the term VPN and what it actually means. They were taking any remote connection to be a VPN, and that is not what a VPN is. So, correct. So we had some learning going on there. So now the physical installation, shipping and delivering. Now, the plan or the goal was to ship this unit as a whole unit. I mean, all the modules installed with all the DDMs installed in each module, and everything was cabled, and it was beautiful. You open the box, you roll it onto the floor, and you're done. You power it up, and you walk out. You know, that's the ideal scenario, and until we actually tried it, and trying to roll that thing off of that crate with it fully loaded, and that was the first challenge. The second challenge was getting it over the cracks in the sidewalk. You know, because there is a lot of weight there on those little casters. So there's still negotiations going on whether or not it's going to be shipped whole, or if there's going to be a weight reduction feature which the modules will be shipped separately. So you'll have the rack shipped with the UPSs installed, with the management module, the 1U management module installed, and the switches already installed. And that'll come in the big crate, and then there'll be 3 smaller crates with 5 modules each on the 3 crates. That's 15, right? Okay. And they'll be packed separately, and you'll have to install the modules into the system and then cable them up in the back as well. So that's actually the more manageable way to ship it as far as moving it and positioning it. You want to allow probably an extra 2 hours for the installation if it comes shipped separately like that. It would take some time, and you'll also need 2 people as well, because the weight of the modules and the height of the last module is over your head, and you either need a lift or 2 people to install the modules. No? Okay.
What was wrong with the concept of the R1 of shipping the DDMs in boxes there? And this is, we don't have a lot of cabling to do on this, right?
Yes. That's a decision that the manufacturing and shipping folks and everyone decided that they think it would be best.
2 hours.
You need more? No, it's about 2 hours. Yeah, I've done several of them. So.
Cabling bugs.
Yeah. Well, we'll see the cabling. I mean, it's not that bad.
Bugs you create, you mean?
Yeah. The cabling. Actually, they do a really good job of packaging this machine. The cables are all cable tied, and they're color-coded, they're labeled, and it's really clear and easy to know where the cables go. And the biggest pain is unwrapping the plastic bag that they put on the end of all the cables. I mean, that takes the longest right there. But everything else we'll see is real straightforward.
Well, the other thing, I guess, if you ever have to lay the rack down to get
Through a door.
too high,
Yeah.
I mean, it's, you know, you would need all that stuff out of it anyhow.
We've done that.
Yeah. Well, the risk of, because it's more critical for the DDM positioning in the modules, it's easier to just ship the DDMs in the modules themselves and put 15 modules in than it is to try to manage 180 drives that all need to be in the right place. So now in the U.S., uncrating the box, the shipper is actually tasked with the job of taking the machine out of the crate and wheeling it onto the raised floor area. So hopefully we'll never have to do that in the field, but as we already seen here in the labs and maybe some early ship programs and things like that, that you might actually be uncrating these machines. Right, in the field, but I tried to do that. I tried to use that excuse in the lab, and they looked at me like I had 3 heads. But so instruct the customer not to sign for the delivery until after the shipper or the mover has moved the machine into place. That's for liability reasons. If they do dump it into a hole, I mean, it's on their insurance tab, not IBM's or the customer's. So you want to instruct the customer to inspect the crate, make sure there's no external damage, and there's a couple of tilt and shock indicators on the side and the back of the machines as well. That's all standard for equipment. You want to make sure during your call with the customer that they understand that there should be a clear and level path from the truck to the building, no steps. The elevators, correct, all that stuff, the height of the doorways, normal things. So here's a picture of the crate that it comes in. And what's really cool is the front door actually folds down and becomes a ramp. Yeah, that's this is J.R. Rivera, our PFE that's not here, so let's all laugh at J.R.
He came in the box.
He came.
Yeah, he came in the crate.
No, he came in this box, and the machine came in this box. Okay. Now, there is one thing I'd like to point out about this picture here. There's one very important thing about this picture. Does anyone know what that is? What's that? No, this picture over here with JR in it. But I mean, a very, very important aspect of this picture. He's actually reading the instructions. He's well, that never happened. So, well, but
what you don't know is he's going back now to read the instructions.
Right.
Because he screwed it up. Yeah.
If you'll notice, see, the machine's on a downhill climb, it's getting ready to start rolling down.
Yeah, the other way.
I sure hope I got good braces underneath this ramp there, man. That's too much.
Well, you can hear the wood. This was the full system. This was the one that came shipped full, all populated, and you can hear the wood underneath crackling as you rolled it down. Yeah.
And you really don't want to take the screws out with hand twist screwdriver. I did that yesterday.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you got that right.
Yep. You need a power driver, and this is all in the shipping instructions. Also, there's a couple brackets in the front right here and in the back that you're going to need a nut driver for. I think it's 14 millimeter on both the front and the back.
Is it going to ship with the power drill?
No, it doesn't ship with the wrenches or the power drill. So, okay. Now the positioning of the rack, once it's uncrated and into the raised floor area, it's desirable to have clearance on the right side from the front of looking at the front of the rack, and for maintenance. And also, it's actually desirable to have clearance on the left side for the patch panel maintenance, because that's where the patch panel on the back is. But we all know that's never going to happen, and so we'll show you what needs to be done for maintenance. If there's no other option and the customer wants to sandwich it in between two other machines, before it's rolled into place, remove the right-hand cover and check for the cables that go to the components like the switches and the RPS and the maintenance module, because we have had instances where those cables come loose and the power is disconnected during shipping. So you want to remove the side panel, inspect the cables, make sure everything's plugged in before you roll it and sandwich it in between the two machines.
During maintenance on any of that, are we gonna have to get back into that to do maintenance?
No, it's not absolutely required for maintenance after the machine is in place. It's a lot easier to have it access on the sides, but there is I think it's a 3U false panel on the front. And you can remove that panel and reach your arms in there and get to the cabling. That's why I was saying you have to have small forearms, because there's a small space that you have to do a lot of manipulation in. So the rack has 4 feet that you can extend down using a screwdriver. You don't need the special wrench like you had to use in R1. All you need is a Phillips head screwdriver to extend the feet down. Now, there's not the hard leveling requirement that we had in R1, or at least it's, I don't think it's a hard requirement. They're not stressing that as much. But the importance of lowering those feet are that it stabilizes the machine and doesn't allow it to roll. So you want to make sure once it's in position, put the feet down so it's not rolling around. That way if somebody moves a floor tile, it's not going to roll into it. And once it's in its final location, make sure there's enough air holes and tiles to provide adequate airflow to the front of the machine. Yeah, to extend the feet, yes, it's a Phillips screwdriver. Yeah, in R1 it was a wrench that typically got lost and you had no way to extend the feet down. So here's a picture of the cabling with the right-hand side cover removed. These are the power going to the 2 switches, and you have the cable going to the redundant power supply, the Dell redundant power supply supplying the DC voltage to the switches here. There's also, below this is the maintenance module, and to the front is the RPS. The switches also have the interconnect cables that I mentioned earlier, and they're on the left side of the rear of the switches. So here we see this machine was shipped with the weight reduction feature with all of the modules removed. So you have to unpack each module separately and install it in the proper location. The location is important because, as we mentioned yesterday, the cabling is switch port specific. I got a fly by me. Sorry about that, technical difficulties. It went on my nose, man. So here you'll see it's packaged very nicely. All the cables are tie wrapped and at specific lengths. And oh, thanks. Did you get it?
No.
Or you just want to smack me upside the head? He's been waiting 5 months to do that, I tell you.
Should have waited till it landed on your head.
Okay. So the cabling, like I was saying, each cabling comes wrapped in bags and tie wrapped, and that takes the most time to undo there. The modules are all the equipment is installed from the bottom up. So the UPS on the bottom is UPS 1. The next one up is UPS 2. The next one up is UPS 3. So the modules go from bottom up as well. Module 1 is on the bottom right above the UPSs, and they go up from there all the way to 15. Here's another picture that faceplate that I was telling you about that you can remove and access the cabling in the back. Here's the switches. Right here would be the two interconnect cards on the switches, and they would be linked together with a cable. Here's the RPS power and the AC power. Here's the Dell RPS right below here. And this is right in the middle of the machine, as you can see in this picture. So that brings us to cabling. First of all, any questions on the site requirements or physical installation or unpacking?
One question on the install, just from installing them, I noticed that the bottom management module kind of bends down, I guess, during shipment. You just have to pull it up, shove that module in there.
The management module?
The management module or the bottom? So yeah,
Oh, oh, okay, the maintenance module.
maintenance.
The maintenance module. Yeah, so this might be a tight squeeze, and you might need to lift that up a little bit to slide that module in. You didn't get it. Is Steve here? Steve Manthorpe? No? Oh, I was going to tell him to take his pet with him. Okay, cabling. This machine has a lot of cables. Like I mentioned earlier, they're all cut to length, so it's pretty clear where they go. They're tie wrapped. This machine is pre-GA. In the GA machines, you're going to see additional Ethernet cards installed in all of the modules with 2 additional Ethernet cables coming from each module. They made this as a design change to increase the throughput of communication between the modules themselves. Here you'll see each of the cables are color-coded. The red cables go to the upper switch, the yellow cables go to the lower switch, and purple cables go to the patch panel. And patch panel is located on the rear right-hand side. It's actually right here, the patch panel. So the cables are color-coded at each end and labeled. The nomenclature, this page talks about the nomenclature. It may not be clear at first, but once you see the machine, once we walk up to it and actually look at the locations, it'll make a whole lot more sense. But just keep in mind that the patch panel nomenclature starts with P1, and it has 40 ports starting at .1 going through P1.40. It is top down, so they weren't consistent.
So it's opposite the module.
It's opposite the modules, yes. So it's top down, starting with the fiber and going all the way to the last, the first 24 ports are fiber, and then the last 40 minus 28, the last ports are all RJ45s. Each module, the nomenclature for the modules, M1 through M15. So, for example, the PSUs would be M1 through 15, P1 for the first power supply, and P2 for the second power supply. Yeah?
And those redundant power supplies are not replaceable?
The RPS is the RPS is only for the switches.
Okay, but in the modules there, you got dual power.
Oh yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the PSUs are FRUs, are field replaceable.
Yeah. It implied like you had to replace. There's nothing in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I didn't mention yeah, that's an exception also, the power supplies.
So the only FRUs that you can replace in a module are the drives or the power supplies. That's it.
Nothing that's under the cover. It requires you to pull the cover off.
So if you see a power cable that's labeled M2P1, you know it goes to module 2, power supply 1. The serial cable on the back is labeled MXS1. So S1 is the serial port. The USB is USB 1 and USB 2 for each of the 15 modules. The network A1 and A2, this is the onboard network adapter. And the fiber channel card. So basically the adapters work, they go from A on the left-hand side and work to the right-hand side. So the first card, onboard slots are A. The next card is a fiber channel card, which is B. So B1 through B2, and C1 and C2. So you have two interface cards right next to each other. And then the next card is an Ethernet card. It's D. And the last card is also an Ethernet card, is E. So the ports on these also are labeled top down, 1 being on the top and 4 being on the bottom. So if you see a cable labeled M5D1, you know it goes to module 5 Ethernet card location D1. So these are like location codes, basically. The Ethernet switches, you have N1 and N2, which each have 48 ports. So you would have N1.1 through N1.48 on switch 1, and N2.1 through N2.48 on the second switch. The first switch is on the bottom, so N1 is on the bottom, N2 is above it on top. Each of the Ethernet switches also have a serial connection. Now this serial connection is on the back of the switch, so it's in the middle of the box. So this is also something that you want to check before, while you have the side covers off. And its nomenclature is N for network switch, X, S1 for the serial port. The UPSs are labeled U1 through U3. The UPS 1 is on the bottom, 2 is in the middle, 3 is on the top. And each of the power ports on the back of that, we'll see a picture in a moment, but each of the power outlets are labeled 1 through 6. There's actually 8 of them, 7 and 8 are not used. So you'll see a power cable that says U1.1. That means it goes to UPS 1, port 1 on the UPS. The UPSs also have a network connection, so it would be UXN1, and it also has a serial connection, UXS1. The RPS, remote power supply that supplies the power to the switches, is just labeled RPS1, S1, and RPS S2. And it goes to switch 1 and switch 2. Now, again, this nomenclature, once you see the machine, it'll be really clear, and this will make a whole lot of sense. You just glance at it and know exactly where a cable goes. But keep this on hand. There will also be tables in the maintenance manual that I put on the thumb drive for all of you. There's actually a service and installation guide that has tables with all of these cable locations in them. Here's a diagram of the patch panel. It starts at the top and goes down. So the first 24 ports are fiber channel, and the rest are RJ45. And here's an example of the table that you'll see in the maintenance manuals.
Your patch panel's out of date, right?
Yes, this patch panel in this presentation is not GA level.
The one that's in the overview presentation is correct.
Okay, you get a price. There you go.
Is that your review or his review?
And that was his overview. So yeah, and who knows if it's going to be correct at GA, right? I mean, they're still negotiating locations and labeling on these patch panel. So here's the rear of a module. We saw this yesterday in the overview. What happened to my keyboard arrow? There should be an arrow going to. You got it? Really? Wow. Okay. So here we see the serial. We have the onboard network ports, the USB ports. Now USB 1 is to the left, and USB 2 is to the right, and only the bottom 2 are used. The upper 2 are not currently in use.
And what do we use those for?
The USB connections are used for the USB to serial network. So what happens is the USB port here, there'll be a cable, just like we see on our laptops. It goes.
The switches and the UPS.
Right, exactly. Now what happens is USB port 1 is used to tie all of the modules together. So this module, let's say this is module 1, and the USB port will actually plug from the USB port on module 1 into the serial port on module 3.
So groups of 3.
And remember the groups of 3 diagram? Okay. So they're linked together, and you can actually communicate by logging into module 1, connecting to this port. Actually, they use a telnet protocol. They hijack port 2020, and so if you telnet to port 2020 on module 1, it'll actually take you out of this port and into the serial port on module 3. So that's how that works. USB 2 is used only on a few modules, and that's to connect to the switches and to the UPSs. The UPSs are connected to modules 1, 2, and 3, and the switches are, now this is still fluctuating too, but as of the last information I had, are connected to modules 5 and 6. Yeah. You can also plug in a monitor, a mouse, and a keyboard to this thing and watch it boot and access it this way. Now, we probably won't do this in the field, maybe in extreme cases where they need some information, but you'll only connect to those ports at the direction of development. So the onboard Ethernet cards are A1 and A2. The first fiber channel card is B1 and 2. Starting from the top is 1, lower is 2. Then you have C1 and 2, D1 through 4 for the Ethernet, E1 through 4, and the compact flash card.
If you do have to stick a keyboard and mouse and monitor on it, is it like a typical PC where you got to boot for it to work?
It's not a USB.
Not necessarily. I mean, yeah, I've plugged them in hot and they've worked. Yeah. I know early on systems you wouldn't want to do that because you had a chance of blowing a fuse on the motherboard, but I think they've gotten past that in recent years. Here's a example of a table with the cabling nomenclature for module 4, and you notice power P2 goes to UPS 3 port 2, and it goes to module 4 power 2. So this is what you would see on the actual cable itself, and this would be the same label on each end of the cable. So all you're going to say is it goes from UPS 3 port 2 to module 4 power supply 2. Likewise, here you have network 1 port 4 goes to module 4 Ethernet connection A1. So here we talk a little bit more about the USB to serial connections. They're used for internal processes to communicate to modules in the event the network connection is not functioning. It's also used to configure new modules and switches. When you put a new switch in the system, it's in the factory default configuration, and as a part of the component test that we'll see later, it actually goes out and tries to communicate with that switch to set its configuration parameters over the serial port. And then once that passes and it's able to verify, then the component test will complete. It can be used in extreme cases where no other option to troubleshoot or diagnose problems exists. You may be directed by development to access the component through this connection, and we'll see that later on how to do that. And again, this is accessed by PFE or development only, or at their direction. You don't want to go in, even if you know how, you don't want to go in and mess around with these connections, because the system is actually actively monitoring each component over these connections. And if you're in there looking at stuff, that means the system can't connect to it, and it may fail that component because it's not able to talk to it. So you want to be real careful when using these connections. Again, the modules are linked together in groups of 3. So module 1 USB port would connect to module 3's serial port. Module 3's USB port would link down to module 2's serial port, and module 2's USB port would link back down to module 1's serial port. And so your groups are 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, and 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 in those groups of 3. The USB 1 port in module 1 connects to a serial port in module 3, so on. We just went through that. Okay. You got my plan? Good. You must smell a lot better than I do. So the switches are connected to modules 5 and 6. Switch 1, the lower switch, is connected to module 5's USB 2 port, and the upper switch is connected to module 6 USB 2 port. And like I mentioned before, the UPSs are also connected to modules 1, 2, and 3 USB 2 port. And here we see USB 1 is on the left, lower left, USB 2 is on the lower right. Power up. So once you got the system unpacked, uncrated, rolled into place, into position, you've checked all the cabling, you've made sure that everything's going where it needs to be, everything's seated, it's all pretty, you're now ready to power up the system. You want to, in the installation manual is going to be a procedure to check the customer's AC voltage using a meter. And this is standard procedure on all our high-end equipment. You want to make sure that you don't just trust the customer. He says, oh yeah, that's 220 volts, single amp, go for it. You want to actually test it to make sure. We had a situation in R1 where we required a 110 outlet, and the customer said, yeah, that's 110. So we plugged in a power strip, and it blew the power strip, and flames flew out my fingers. It was really cool. So you don't want to do that. There's 3 circuit breakers on the back of each of the 3 UPSs. You want to make sure they're in the off position when you initially apply customer power. This is to ensure that the system doesn't power up completely, or when you apply AC power before you're ready for it. You want to connect both input power line cords to the ATS. There'll be 2 green lights to verify that you're actually getting AC from the customer line. And then once you have AC power, you want to go to the front of the machine and remove the UPS face plates. There's some decorative plates on the front. You want to remove those. They just pop right off. And 1 battery on each UPS is going to be shipped unplugged. And as mentioned yesterday, it's to prevent the batteries from draining during shipment. Here is the picture of the back of the UPS. As you see, there's 3 circuit breakers, and the circuit breakers control the output. These are the output ports. They're labeled 1, starting in the upper left is 1, moving to the right is 2, 3, and 4. And then dropping to the bottom row is 5, 6, and 7 and 8 are not used. Now what they do is these outputs, they're actually shared between multiple modules. So you may have 2 separate modules plugged into port 1, and they use a Y cable. So you'll see Y cables in the system. Yes.
You've got 2 that aren't used. Are they powered?
Yes.
If you power your laptop from them, connect to the tickets.
Yes. The question was, are the unused ports hot or powered? They do have power, and you can use them if you have an adapter. No, the cable's not included, but if you have an adapter such as this,
We've got that part in the part system.
okay. So you can actually plug this into the back of the UPS and power your laptop from it. Okay. All right, so don't plug into the back of the UPS, but on the ATS, there's going to be the same jack. So plug into the ATS instead of the
There
UPS.
was something in the frame where we could power up.
Yes, yeah, you have access to ports on the ATS that you could use. So the comment was for the recording was, it's not advisable to plug into the UPS because you have the chance of disturbing the cabling or unplugging or flipping a power breaker. So if you want to power your laptop at the machine, use the port on the ATS. So here's a picture of the front of the UPS. The decorative cover plate is removed, and you'll see that the cable for one battery is unplugged. And you simply plug it into the port right up above. The battery, you can access the battery by removing these two screws. And the plate, you see this arrow right here, the plate slides and will hinge outward. So once you slide it to the left, it'll hinge open and you can actually pull the battery out from there. But all you need to do during installation is make sure that this connector is seated, and once it's seated, the fan will start turning if there's AC power applied to the UPS. If you plug this battery in and this fan does not turn, you need to make sure that the UPS is properly plugged into the ATS in the back of the machine. So you'll do this for each of the 3 UPSs. So you plug the battery in, the fan should come on. If not, reseat each connector and make sure that the UPS is plugged into the ATS. Then you replace the faceplate cover. You go to the rear of the machine. Oh, yeah.
On the PGA box, you have a 330 amp UPS plug.
Yes.
Then you have to,
Correct.
and so none of these directions actually say what plug into what.
Okay, the question was, on the pre-GA boxes, there's no ATS, and so there's a 110 plug that's powering the maintenance module. The maintenance module is not really an active part of the system, so that can be plugged in at any time. Before or after, it's not really used for installation. At GA, the maintenance module is going to be used for dial-in on the modem. So you want to make sure before you walk away that that's plugged in and up and running. So once the UPS batteries are plugged in, you want to go to the rear of the machine and turn all 3 circuit breakers on all 3 UPSs on. There's a online bypass switch in the lower center of the UPS. It's a little slide switch. You want to make sure it's in the online left position. And then you power on all 3 UPSs simultaneously by pressing the test button on the front of each UPS. So you have to have 3 fingers. Yeah, well, a couple seconds, but as close as possible, you want to turn them on all simultaneously. Once you do that, the rack is going to power up. All the modules will start powering up at that time, and it'll start the IML of the system, as long as the batteries have enough charge in them to allow the IML. So here's the power button, or it's labeled test on the front of each UPS. It's the right-hand button, and that's what you want to push to turn it on. All right, before we go into logical installation, let's take a 15-minute break. Yeah, so we're going to talk about this tomorrow in maintenance, but there's a couple critical components that need to be replaced right away. DDMs and modules can be deferred, but UPSs and switches, they're considered critical components and need to be replaced right away if they fail. Because at that point, your system is not redundant from a hardware standpoint. You cannot sustain another UPS failure if you're already down one UPS. So you need to get that replaced as soon as possible. The same with the switch. If one switch goes down, you're no longer redundant from a hardware standpoint. Your system may be, say, fully redundant on the display, but you're not. That's only taking into consideration the data redundancy, not the hardware redundancy. Okay, so keep that in mind as we go along, and we are going to.
Let's see, before you
Yeah.
sort of off the record, I guess, on the ATS.
Exception of the ATS, all components in this replacing are concurrent. Again, with the exception of the ATS, it's theoretically possible, but it makes people nervous when you say you have a plan to replace the ATS concurrently.
Yeah, with 30 seconds, right?
Yeah.
Now, you can transfer the cables over such that you leave everything out.
Yeah, it would
But
require additional inputs from the customer to power the new ATS and then transfer one UPS at a time to the new ATS and then move it in place. So,
But really, there's nothing in it to replace. It either worked or it didn't work.
I was gonna say, why are you changing it if everything's still
Yeah, I
working?
can't imagine there'd be a reason to replace it unless there's an upgraded model that comes out, or there's one that comes out that fixes some known defects. That would be the only reason. But I don't know how you would detect if there's a problem.
failure, right?
Once you lost all your data, because one line failed.
Not the data.
No, the ATS failure is only loss of access. There's no loss of data.
One
Okay.
line failed and it didn't switch. Worst case, it's going to power down.
Power's down in 30 seconds. 30 seconds on battery, and it does a sequential, a sequence down.
Okay? So let's move on to the logical installation. So this is after the physical installation. You've got the machine rolled into place, cabled up, powered on, all that good stuff. You must complete the physical install first, of course. Then you should have already gathered all the customer environment information, such as the time zone, the NTP server, email, SMTP server, and customer IP addresses from the site survey or the conference call that you have with the sales and marketing team and the customer and some. I'm sorry? It's going to be. Oh, I don't know. I don't know yet.
Is it all, I mean, did the machine get code 20 service?
Yes, it will.
That was, then it's eligible for SIs.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if it's not a
Eligible and required or mandatory.
right.
Well, so.
Okay, so here's the chart again on the information that you'd want to collect from the customer. You'll want to have the XIV GUI and CLI loaded on your laptop. We've already done that in yesterday's lab. Once you have powered up the XIV system, you'll connect your laptop to a technician port on the patch panel. Now, that port location on the patch panel has been changing. I think it's settled down now, but I'm not sure which port it actually is. We'll look in the latest version of the GUI. It actually shows you, so we'll take a look at that in a minute. But if you wanted to find out which port it actually is, you would look on Module 4, Connection E3 or Location E3, and that's the port that you're actually plugging into. So we talked a little bit about having to troubleshoot that patch panel. If you plug into the patch panel and you don't get a connection, you don't get link lights and that sort of thing, you can potentially try to troubleshoot that connection by plugging your laptop directly into module 4, port E3. Once you do that, your laptop should be configured to receive an IP address through DHCP. When you plug into that port, you'll get assigned a DHCP address. And that address, as of the latest release of software, was 14.10.202.1. And the system has a fixed IP address of 14.10.202.250. So once you connect to that port, you should be able to ping that address, the 250 address. If you're able to ping that, then you can launch GUI and use the predefined IP address and talk straight to the system that you're installing from the technician port. You can also use XCLI. I think everyone set up an install config yesterday using this same address. Once you get a valid connection, you want to check the system state. Yes. Yeah, we'll go through all that on what's required for checking the system state. Now the GUI, at the time we wrote this material, the only way you can set system parameters were by using the admin account. So you want to log in as admin with username admin with a password of admin admin, admin twice with no space in between. And we requested that they change the permissions of the technician account in order to set all of these parameters, but I don't know if that's currently active yet or not. So if you're not able to set some of these parameters using technician, just change to the admin account and you should be able to set all these parameters. We all did this yesterday during our lab. You start the GUI after you log in as admin, and you right-click on the desktop, select Add a System, and you can see here we selected the Use Predefined IPs, and it'll automatically populate the first system IP address with the 14.10.202.250. Now this address is the same for every single system that gets shipped in the field. It'll be the same address. You want to wait until the added system shows full redundancy. Move the cursor over the machine symbol and left-click to open the machine overview. The system condition will be shown in the bottom fields. You want to look for full redundancy and make sure that the capacity for a fully populated system is around 79302 gigabytes, or 79, roughly 80 terabytes. So here we see the display. You want to look in the lower right for full redundancy, and over here it shows you're using 0 of 79, actually here it's 113. But it should be consistent, that number. XCLI setup. Again, from yesterday, you can either specify a username and password on the command line using the U and P parameters or set up environment variables. Somebody said they were having trouble with the environment variables. Did you get that worked out? You haven't? Did it again and it's still not working? One thing oh, you know what? You installed version 38. I wonder if it's the same environment variables. So we need to check that. Okay, I know the environment variables work on version 34 and below, but version 38 of the GUI has had some changes, and they've changed the directory structure where it gets installed. They've removed Nextra, so we need to check into that. I think that may be the problem. Also, something you want to be aware of is that it's white space aware. So if you accidentally put in a space at the end of the username or the password, it's going to also fail. So be careful when you type in the information. So we all added a new config for the install machine called install using the default address. And you'll want to make sure that XCLI is functioning properly by just doing a simple command such as state list. And what you want to look for in state list is that the system state is on. If it says booting or maintenance or anything but on, you potentially have a problem there. If it says booting, it could be waiting for the UPSs to charge. There's all sorts of reasons why, but you'll know the system is on and running when it says system state equals on. Also in the events, you can look for an event called start work, system has entered on state. And this is also an indication that the system is completely IML'd and is ready to go. These are really your only indications of checking the system state. Now here's where the latest version of GUI is different from this presentation. I'm going to go through what it looks like in version 34, but then I'm going to break out of the presentation and show you how to do this in version 38 of the software. So you want to set the 3 IP addresses on the management IP addresses for nodes 4, 5, and 6. To set it in version 34 or below, you would, in the GUI, you would select the system, click on Monitor, IP Interfaces, iSCSI. Then you right-click on the table and select Update Management IPs. Enter the 3 IP addresses, netmask, and gateway supplied by the customer. So here's what that would look like. Is this an actual IP address? Yes, it is. It's yeah, it's one of the lab machines.
Number 4.
So I'm going to break out here.
When I did Red Book, they deliberately got you to obscure anything that was a 9-dot address. Because after they published the Red Book, everyone inside IBM will start hammering these machines.
This is a good point. I didn't think of that.
Can't get through the firewall, right?
Well, a lot of IBMs can.
Yeah, I mean, the ones that can, but then they probably had a need to.
I them in Gaithersburg, so the people in Gaithersburg could find these people were trying to log onto their box.
I think I'll change the addresses when we're done here.
Actually, that happened at 6:30 this morning. The Gaithersburg box, which is the customer box, was hit the threshold for the A server, and we had over 50 logins, and it killed the customer's login. So that is behind the Gaithersburg firewall. So we had 50 IBMs logged in since yesterday, and I was recovering the machine this morning.
Nice.
So get the IPs out of it.
Too late. The IPs are there. We'll get them changed. That's all. I need to go through the firewall. So in version 34 is what I'm running on this system. 2.2.34. Thank you. You select the system that you want to use. Well, this would you're plugged into the technician port, so it's going to be the default one, right? So you would go over to the monitor icon on the right of the screen, or the left of the screen, I'm sorry, and go down to IP interfaces iSCSI. You'll come to an empty table. Simply right-click and select Update Management IPs, and it'll bring up that screen. That's not real obvious, correct? And so, to make it more obvious, in version 38, if anyone has installed this version, you run it by XIV GUI, version 2.2.38. You gotta wait till it goes large like that before it'll. So now in this version, that option is no longer there when you go to IP interfaces iSCSI. That's why I thought it was broken. I thought they inadvertently removed that feature. But instead of going there to set the IP addresses, you would actually click on this arrow down here. It says back view, okay? So you click on back view and it brings up a picture of the patch panel. This is also not very intuitive, correct? So now as you hover over each of the patch panel ports, it'll tell you what they're for. Maintenance port is not the port we're going to plug into. Maintenance port, laptop port. So these two are the laptop ports that you want to plug into. There's port 40, going up from the bottom, 40, 39, 38, 37, and 36 are the laptop ports, or what we're calling now have previously been called technician ports. And you can see here that the bottom port plugs into data module 4. It's up and ready. And the next port plugs into data module 5. If you keep going up the list, you'll finally come to the 3 ports: management port 1, management port 1, and management port 1. But basically they're data modules 4, 5, and 6. If you click on one of these ports, all right. Oh yeah, you have to be a technician, I guess. Thank you. So now you right click on it and it says update management IP interfaces, and you get the same screen. So that's how you would set it in version 38 of the software. You would.
Wouldn't the customer be able to update his own IP address?
Good question.
I think it should be in both admin and
Yes.
technician, probably.
Yeah, again, this is, the question was, why wouldn't the admin be able to change his own IP addresses? You would think they would, and what I'll do is open a defect against this and let them know that
Are we sure that makes sense?
does it make sense?
Well, we want to, these are set at install time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a,
And if they go and randomly change these things, they're going to break it.
He's willing to pay for us to come and change it for him?
Customers change shock operators all the time.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah.
They change their network around.
This is their tap in the box, right?
I mean,
Yeah, it's the customer address.
Fill out the sheet, we'll normally do it on install, but normally it's not a function of break fix to go in and change this.
Well, as I'm saying, with shock, we get service calls regularly, probably once a month, saying, how do we change our IP addresses? We can't find an interface.
Yeah, and previously it was a customer changeable parameter. So, yeah, I'll open a defect and say you can no longer do it from admin, but you have to do it from technician.
so the customer's only supposed to log in with admin. So
Correct.
They should have the technician.
Correct.
They're going to
Exactly.
change the
Yeah,
password.
the technician password is going to be changed at GA to something less obvious than technician. Yeah.
But it'll be documented.
Okay, I'm sorry? Yeah, this machine is not customer serviceable, so the technician account should be reserved for IBM personnel only. You should not give that account username and password to the customer.
Make it serve one CEC.
Yeah, he bought it, but it's the same mentality. We don't give the CE access to on a DS8000. Do we give that to the customer? Okay, you're not supposed to, exactly. So since this is not a customer serviceable machine, we reserve that because they can go in and cause some damage. The technician is the only one allowed to phase in and phase out components, and you should really have an understanding of the system, the maintenance of the system before you do those activities. Right, exactly. Well, just the same as the technician account is not allowed to change customer configuration.
I like
Then yeah, you can't. In fact, the technician cannot even shut down the system. Okay, well, yeah. Okay, let me rephrase that. The technician has no GUI or XCLI way of shutting down the system. Now, we argued this point with marketing XIV because on all our other systems, the CEs or the field support has the ability to power down the system. But they decided that the customer should be involved in that activity, and they want the responsibility to be on the customer. They don't want somebody shutting it down and the customer not knowing. So they put that responsibility on the customer to have that or to do that action. Okay?
The customer can do that remotely via the GUI from wherever he's at.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, the customer would be able to connect from wherever they're at to shut down the system. So if you scheduled a maintenance action that requires the system to be powered down, you're going to have to coordinate with the customer and have somebody either at the site or remotely available to power down the system before you can start.
Now, can the customer change their password?
Yes. Yeah, the customer has the ability to change they can add more accounts, they can, give them permissions, change passwords, all that good stuff.
When they forget their password, I'm assuming we have a way to go in and unlock their account or do something?
Good question. Yeah, I'm sure there is a way to change the password when the customer forgets, but right now I don't know what that is because that's all managed through the GUI. Yeah, that.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything on that yet.
Okay.
There is no super user to
We get DS6000 calls all the time for that.
Well,
It's an easy way to do that. We mentioned that there's two default accounts, the admin and the technician, right? There's also an additional two accounts there's a development account and there's also a XIV maintenance account. Now, the XIV maintenance allows you to have the admin and technician functionality together in one account, and the developer is like super user. But those accounts are reserved for development for obvious reasons. So this is how you would update the management interfaces. Once you set these, they take effect immediately. You should then be able to connect or have the customer try connecting to the system using the addresses once they're set. It doesn't take a reboot of the system or anything. You can also set the addresses using XCLI. There's a command called IP interface _update. You specify the IP interface type of management, and you supply it with the 3 IP addresses separated with a comma. You can also specify the gateway and net mask on the same line. Yeah, that's a big, long, ugly command, isn't that? Yeah. Again, once you get familiar with the system, we mentioned yesterday that you can script some of these, and you can actually create a bat file for those of you that like scripting things. Create a bat file to automate some of this, and you can put in your addresses in a environment variable or a variable on the top of the bat file and run it. It'll set the values for you.
We've done it. It takes about 3 minutes to set everything.
So you'll also set the VPN IP addresses. It's called VPN IP, but we discussed this earlier. It's not really a VPN. It's the remote network access. Like if the customer is going to allow us to come in through SSH tunneling or through a port in their firewall, they can choose to set up a separate port that's segregated from their network. Maybe they plug it into their DMZ or their yellow zone on their network, or something that's not tied directly into their customer network. They can isolate that. To set this in the GUI on version 34, you would basically go into the same area that you set the management IP addresses using IP interface iSCSI, right click and set the IP, and we'll see that here. I wonder if I can run both GUIs at the same time. No, not on this version. Come on. There, we'll pick on this one. He's responding. So you would go here. This is version 34, IP interfaces, and then you would do update VPN IPs by selecting that option there. On version 38 and above, you would again go into the patch panel view, and they're now calling them maintenance ports. I think these are the, no, that was on the, let's see, laptop ports.
Maintenance module.
Okay, here it is, VPN ports here. So you would update VPN IP interface. I think the maintenance ones, they're planning on those tying directly into the maintenance module, previously known as Chewbacca, because I guess they like Star Wars. So that's the VPN address that you could set. Here's an example of the dialog that you get to change that. You set the net mask and gateway also. Again, this could be separate from the customer's network if they want to run that to their DMZ.
If one of you guys went ahead and wrote the script for CLI to give us the install, you have to plug all this information in and that's it.
Well, I'll tell you what, since things are fluctuating right now, what we'll do is we'll try to get one together that will be applicable for GA, because anything that we give you now may not work at GA. So
we can give you something now, and you can play with it in the lab and
sure,
and work on it.
I think
Make it right. Make it
Well,
yours.
I mean, just, I'm not going to go write something, but I can hack it.
yeah, there should be a bat file on the thumb drive that was passed around. There's a bat file that has an example on how you would, now that bat file was collecting data, but you can simply just change it and add these commands in a similar fashion
Do you have that, your USB drive?
yeah. Was it on there?
Well, put the install one on there.
Oh, okay. So you can also set the VPN IP address using CLI. It's pretty much the same command as the previous command to set the management interfaces, but you'd specify the IP interface of VPN here instead of management. Then you would give it only 2 addresses and the gateway and net mask.
Yeah, and on your install that, basically what you just go in and edit that to what customer wants and then just execute it. Is that the philosophy? Okay. I mean, you didn't give any write-up in the database on just put the bat out there.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
Yeah, that's right.
wish,
It is on the database.
Yeah.
So
Right.
you can get it from there.
So what'll happen is at the top of the file, you'll set the parameters, like the management IP addresses, the gateways, the net mask, and all that you want to use, and then execute the bat file, and it'll use those values to execute the commands lower in the bat file.
Well, one of the ones you can't talk to either.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's
All right, we'll get plenty of time to play with this in the labs, so don't make me have you close your laptop. Just kidding. Okay, so after you set the management IP addresses, you want to set the system name, the email sender address, the primary and secondary DNS, and the time zone. To set the values using GUI, you can select the system, then select Configure System from the upper menu. It's recommended that you use the customer name as part of the system name so we can easily identify events and things that are emailed from the system, because it actually uses the system name as part of the email when it emails an event back to IBM.
About the local host.
Yeah, something other than localhost.
Every DS8000 in the world.
When you go into the configure system, earlier versions would allow you to change the iSCSI name. You do not want to do that. If a customer insists that they want to change their iSCSI name, make sure you contact development or support. There are some considerations that the customer needs to be aware of if they insist on changing their iSCSI name. Let's go in and take a look at what that looks like. So we were on 37. You're selected the system. Oh, nice, we have a failed drive. And you want to configure system here is where you would enter the system name. This is where you don't want to change the iSCSI name. You can set the email sender's address, the primary, secondary DNS, and the time zone. Let's make sure that that's still doable on next versions, and it's exactly the same on the version 38 of the GUI.
The email sender address, is that the email, is that box's email ID or?
Yeah, the email sender's address is basically some customers have restrictions on their email server, on their SMTP server, that so to prevent relaying, that the from address has to have a customer email address, or it won't allow the relay. It's basically acting as a SMTP relay. So, and this is only if the customer requires it, you know, and that should be part of your discussion during the initial call. So here we have a screenshot of the dialog that you get to change those values. You can also set the values using XCLI. The system name, you use config set name equals system name, and value equals the name of the system what you want to name the system. The email sender address, again, uses config set name equals email underscore sender underscore address, and value equals the address that you're going to use. Setting the DNS, you use config set name equals DNS primary, value equals the IP address, and name equals DNS secondary, value equals secondary DNS address. Once you've set the DNS, it's a good idea to test it to make sure that it runs and is able to resolve addresses. So you can use the XCLI command DNS underscore test and give it a name of some host that you want to resolve to see if it'll actually resolve the name. It should return the name, and if it's able to resolve them using the primary DNS and secondary DNS, it should return the addresses. This is not available in GUI, but it's something that you can do from XCLI. A time zone. You can set the time zone using XCLI. You can see what time zones are available to select by using the time zone underscore list. This will give you the same values that are in the drop-down box in the GUI. You can set the time zone once you know what time zone you want to choose. You can set the time zone using time zone underscore set. Time zone equals the value from the time zone list of the previous command, the output from the previous command. In this example, we used Europe/Berlin. Once you've set the time zone, you can verify it by using a time list, and it should return the time zone that you set. Now, the time zone is not a dynamic parameter. If you change it, it takes a reboot of the system. They're working on correcting that, and they hope to have a fix at some future release. But what happens is everything will look good once you change the time zone, but the logging, the event logger needs to be rebooted in order for the event log to reflect the current time zone. Now the system date, the time, and the NTP server must be set using XCLI. There's currently no option to set those values using GUI. So they must be set using XCLI. To set the time, you'd use time underscore set. Time equals the time you want to use in that format. Year hyphen month hyphen day dot hour colon minute colon second. Very intuitive, right? You're all going to remember that. If you forget any of these commands, again, you have the XCLI reference document that you can go back and look at. And again, you can check the current time, make sure the time updated using time underscore list. You can also verify all the parameters that you just set by using the XCLI command config underscore get. And it should return all of the values that you set, the DNS primary, secondary, the email sender address, the NTP servers, the time zone is in an offset format, so that's of no use. You can check the system name here. Also, I don't think we covered this, but the official machine type of this machine is a 2810, and the model number is A14. So that might be of interest to you guys. Did we cover that? 2810? Okay.
It's out there, but yeah.
So now we all know. It's a 2810 model A14. Pardon me? So, yeah. Well, that's what a DS20. I don't think they're calling it DS2810. Just a model type 2810. Now we've talked a lot about event notifications, rules, and destinations. This information is still being finalized, but just be aware that you will be required to set a few other parameters dealing with event notifications, such as a SMTP server, and a couple other parameters yet that they're still working on. So it'll be part of the install instructions that will be released at GA, hopefully before, but at least at GA before you go and install a machine. One of the parameters you're going to set is SMTP gateway, and you see an example here, setting it using SMTP GW underscore defined, and the gateway name and the address. You can verify the setting using SMTP GW underscore list, and this is a part of the event notification. So after you've set all of the parameters, you want to power off the machine and back on for two reasons. One, to make sure that the time zone change takes effect, and two, to make sure that all of your settings, all the parameters you just set, persist across the reboot.
We can't do it because we don't have that access. And
No, but remember, you're logged in as admin at this point. So during install, you're going to use the admin account because, but once you turn it over to the customer, they're going to change the address. Right. So this is the only time, the only exception that the technician is allowed to shut down the system.
Using those 3 buttons.
Yeah. See what you started.
Can admin create any other user accounts?
Yes. Yeah, they can create.
All the basic permissions that admin has, and technician.
I don't think they can create an account with technician access or maintenance or developer access, but they can. Yeah, sure. If the customer so wishes you to have that authority, you know, they can create you your own account to shut things down.
if you create a admin account, another admin account, do we lose the default admin account with admin?
I believe.
That's what we've done on other products.
Like store watching special.
Yeah, right, exactly. Because sometimes we'll create a service login with the admin authority there. Because at 2 o'clock in the morning, you can't always guarantee you can get a hold of someone that will shut the system down for you.
So down here is under admin, you can see you can change the users, user groups, and access control. So, they're all there. My goodness.
Oh, yeah.
I thought those would be hidden, but here's your development.
In script, you show development login with a ID, with a password there on your bat file installed, right?
Tisk, tisk. Yeah, you want to be careful with the development and maintenance user accounts. Okay. Yeah, I'm logged in as admin, and you can delete, rename, change password.
Well, I'm assuming the change by time is GM. So the customer won't see all those accounts.
Hopefully the customer won't see those accounts. Yeah, because then they can lock us out of it, right? I mean, that won't be good. This is, yeah, this is version 34, so. Well, let's check 38 here. I'll log in as admin.
So 38 is working?
38 is working. The bug I thought was that they removed the option to set, but it's not a bug, it's a feature.
Golly, you've been working around marketing too long.
Oh, no, they're still there. So I'm going to write a defect against this also. And they should not be available to be deleted by the customer, because we'll get into a world of hurt if they delete these accounts.
Or even listed.
So if you have, we should be able to add another user and give him admin authority right now, right?
Correct, yes. Yeah, you can, up here, if you click the add button, you can add, let's say, SSR, and we'll call it SSR PASSWD, SSR PASSWD, I'll never remember that. And you can select full access application administrator, storage administrator, read only. So now we have it there. Okay, so feel free to play around with that, but please don't delete the technician. Let's go to properties. Ah, so you can't change it. Group done. Let's see if we can delete it or if it gives an error. Delete. I'm not going to say okay.
We don't know whether it would fail or not.
Yeah.
Well,
No, you can't recreate it because you have no option. If you add a user, you have no the category. You don't have the option to give them that category. So please don't find out what happens if you delete technician.
well, I mean, will they let you change the password of technician there?
Let's see.
The development, XID, the development log, you can probably change it. Re-add
Change it, and we can always change it back. Yeah, it'd be nice to change it to something shorter.
Tech 1.2. Tech 1.2. Update. Ah, Operation Fair. Cannot change the default. Oh, good.
So you probably can't delete them.
Probably can't delete it either, but I don't want to try it.
Can you log in as a developer?
Can I? Okay.
I mean, you don't have to, just, I'll bet you.
Let's try. Aha. I remembered the password. You guys could probably guess what it is. Come on. Wake up. There we go. This is, now it's going to user. To what? Change password? Oh, add a technician. Okay. Add user. Storage administrator. No, it's not. So even, right, let's see if developer can change the password. Yep, so developer can change the password of the technician. Okay, so as we expected, developers like the super user on the system.
Did you delete the SR?
Yes.
Or you did delete it? Okay.
Yeah, I deleted the SSR account. Okay, so back. Oh, we were talking about events. After you shut down. Okay, after you shut down the system, you want to bring it back up. Once it's fully operational, you want to go in and check the event log. And again, you want to look for the key phrases like system has entered on state and so on. You want to check for any error conditions, any components that might have failed during the reboot. I guess that's it. So those are all the parameters that are required to be set at this time. There's going to be more, like I said, as far as the event configurations go, and the VPN addresses, but all of that will be defined and updated in the installation guide before you go out on your installs. We have, I'm going to stop recording here.